at this point in my life, that people are afraid of their own government, and that's where we're at. But I clipped a little article from the Daily Herald, and I thought there were some numbers in it that I thought were interesting. More than 1.2 million immigrants disappeared from the labor force from January through the end of July. Now, that would include self-deportations and those who were taken. And there's some interesting numbers. Immigrants make up almost 20% of the U.S. workforce, and that data shows 45% of workers in farming, fishing, and forestry are immigrants. About 30% of all construction workers and 24% of service workers are immigrants. And the last thing I thought that was really huge, this has had a huge impact on the ability to create jobs. Of course we want this to end on humanitarian grounds, but even on economic grounds, it's disastrous for our country. We need the immigrants that have fueled the labor force. I live in a townhome, and the roofers and the painters, the landscapers are all immigrant groups. And they do fabulous work. And this is really distressing that they're so fearful. I have a friend, in fact, Rebecca's not here tonight, maybe she's coming later. She teaches, and a lot of her students are Hispanic, and they're afraid to come to school or send their children. This is ridiculous. So Indivisible Naperville welcomes you tonight. We started this group 8 years ago. It was going to be a book club, and then it somehow morphed into all of this. But it was necessary then, and it's necessary now. And there are other Indivisible leaders here right now. I'm looking at Flo Appel from Indivisible DuPage. Thank you, Flo. And Julie Kelly, welcome. And then we have 3 from a group that had a wonderful protest this spring, and they're gonna kind of merge with us as well. So this is welcome to former Surge. It's all good. Indivisible Naperville, as I mentioned, has been around for 8 years. And we usually pass the hat because that's our only source of funding. And if you've got $1 or $2, maybe you can put that in the little bucket that I'm going to send around. And that would help us to defray the expenses that are associated with renting rooms and buying, printing, and doing all the things that we do for the various protests. So I'll start this with Dana. Thank you, Beth. Okay, the first speaker we have tonight is going to be Dr. Mimi Cowan. Raise your hand, Mimi. There she is. She holds a PhD in immigration history from Boston College. She served as the chair of the Will County Board from 2018 to 2022, and after not seeking re-election for all the reasons you might assume, she began her current role as Director of Government Affairs for the Field Museum. She is also the chair of Wheatland Township Democrats. Let's give Mimi a round of applause and welcome her to the podium.
Yep, that works. Thank you so much, Diane, and to all of the Indivisible leaders for the invitation. I don't want to step on this. That's okay. I tend to move around when I talk, so don't want to crush anybody's laptop. Thank you all so much for the invitation to join you here this evening. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. As Diane said, I have a PhD in immigration history, 19th century immigration history, but we do tend to see patterns repeat. I always say history doesn't repeat itself, but we can still learn lessons from the patterns and the context of what history teaches us. And as I thought about how I wanted to kick things off tonight, I'm just going to talk for a few brief minutes and let you get to the actual important work that my fellow panelists are presenting tonight. When I've been with Indivisible before talking about immigration, I have done sort of the broad, overarching history of immigration in the United States, and especially of immigration restriction. Specifically, my academic work focused on anti-immigrant sentiment, which is one of those things that, again, history doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it sure looks the same. But I decided I wanted to talk about things a little bit differently today. You've had the history, you know the history. I can come back in another time and give you all the trends of the history. But I started thinking about the time we are in and modes of resistance. and what history teaches us about that in particular. And I will also admit that this afternoon, what I was thinking of saying, I had to perhaps reconsider a little bit. And I'm not gonna say I'm changing what I'm saying, but I gave it more thought. Because I think it goes without saying, but we should say it anyways, that the vast overwhelming majority of us, no matter what side of the aisle we're on, if we are independents, if we subscribe to one political party or the other, are firmly opposed to political violence. And that that kind of violence, whether it's a one-off random shooter or large-scale violence against communities, doesn't help anyone or anything. I hope we all know that. And in many cases, it can make it worse. But I'm gonna tell you how I started to think about my comments here tonight before the events of this afternoon unfolded. And it was actually in the context of a different era in the United States that wasn't necessarily about immigration, but it was about rights and safety. And I started thinking about the Stonewall riots. So for those of you who, I'm sure everybody's heard about the Stonewall riots, but maybe need a little refresher. Prior to, say, the 1970s, 1980s in the United States, the laws against LGBTQ Americans were very harsh, very exclusionary. And in the 60s in New York City in particular, the police took a very aggressive stance toward the LGBTQ community. And they perpetrated raids on places, usually clubs, nightclubs, where the LGBTQ community was known to spend their time. And these raids were known for being very violent, and members of the community would be beaten by the police. They would be arrested for their gender expression, for the way they dressed, for with whom they were spending their time, all those things. So on June 28th, 1969, the New York City police raided a club in Greenwich Village and the Stonewall Inn. And usually with these raids, the police would announce, they would let the owner of the club know that they were coming. And so people would have a time to clear out or do whatever. But this raid was not pre-announced. And the cops came in, and for one of the first times, the community fought back quite aggressively. And in the aftermath of that, certainly people were arrested, they were hurt by the police. But suddenly there was a change, and I shouldn't say suddenly because it had been taking decades and it still took decades after that, but it's one of those moments we can look back and say was a turning point where people decided to look at things differently. I think there are turning points in history where we can learn something from them. And I think the lesson I take from that is not, oh, it's time to stand up and aggressively, physically fight back. That's not what I'm here to say. But the lesson I take, one of the things I study a lot is riots. And when people decide to push back. And my message here tonight is that these turning points in history, sometimes we are confronted with them and we don't recognize that they are turning points as they are happening necessarily, because you need the long arc of history to realize that. But that people can only be pushed so far. And that is one thing that in my studies, especially when I was teaching, I tried to explain to students. We don't excuse or accept or promote violence in response to social situations, but we need to understand that people can only be pushed so far. So while we don't excuse it, it is a warning to folks in charge that when you consistently strip away rights that we have had, freedoms that we have had, that many of us consider foundational to the character of this nation, when you take people's safety and endanger it, there is a point where people stop taking it. I don't want to see violence in the streets any more than anybody else does. And I hope we don't get to that point. But I encourage you all to seek ways that are comfortable for you to resist when you see injustice, whether it is against you or your neighbor or someone in the next county over or someone in the next state over, because those acts of resistance do in fact matter. They are what has changed the trajectory of this country at many points, whether it was the 1879 railroad strike or the 1886 Haymarket Affair or the Stonewall riots or the civil rights movements. Again, I'm not advocating, and I hope none of us find ourselves in a position where we are being harmed by authorities. But I hope the authorities also know that they need to do their job to protect us and our neighbors and our friends, because it goes both ways. So that is my story for tonight. And I'm so happy to be here to listen to what the other panelists have to say. This is such an important moment. As a historian, I always used to say it was, always refreshing when I got to teach about something that was actually alive and happening, rather than something way in the past. But that's kind of taken a turn lately, where the things that were in the past and hard to have students relate to, they totally get now. I'm not sure that's what I really wanted. But thank you all for being here tonight. And I think that is one way you are showing that you care and that we can move forward as a community. It is important. It is important to our neighbors. It's important to me. And thank you very much.
Oh, I've got to get my papers. Our next speaker is going to be State Representative Dee Avallard. She has the southeast portion of Naperville, I believe, is close to part of her district is in that area. You got it. And she sent me a short bio, which I will now read. State Representative Dagmara Avallard serves Illinois' 85th District and is an assistant majority leader in the House. Born in Quito, Ecuador, am I close? And raised in Bolingbrook, she is a former Dreamer who became a U.S. citizen in 2016. Since her election in 2020, she has championed legislation to expand healthcare access, protect drinking water, invest in affordable housing, and strengthen social services, while securing funding for pivotal projects in her district. A lifelong community organizer, Rep. Avallard continues to advocate for equity, opportunity, and a government that works for all. Please welcome State Representative Dee Avallard.
Good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Dee Avallard, Dagmara. That was the name that my mom chose for me. And I'm so happy to be here. I know that these times are quite dark, and I think many of us are trying to see where are the silver linings, and today's meeting is one of them. Again, I represent the 85th District, and one of the things, and I want to make sure that we get to the other panelists as well, but as I was thinking about what is the greatest threat that we're facing today, specifically with what's happening in the Chicagoland area, because it's not just Chicago, it's the Chicagoland area. So when we've heard time and time again that there's been immigration raids in the past, because that has happened in the past as well, in Chicago, that also means the collar counties. I started as a community organizer with the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. I was a proud founding staff of the Family Support Hotline. which is being used as we speak right now to alert of ICE sightings. Just on Monday, they got over 500 calls, the highest number of phone calls since January of this year. So that just tells you that the community is anxious, the community is willing to also, when they see something, they're also calling it out. And I think that for me, that's a big silver lining. But what I think is one of the greatest threats that we are facing right now is the dehumanization of our neighbors. The dehumanization of people like myself. Somebody who was not born in the US, somebody who came here at the age of 12, that went through our school system, and yet we are being told by this administration that we don't belong here. We are being told by the Supreme Court that if you speak another language, that if you look different, that if you look like you might be an immigrant, which the biggest question is, what does an immigrant look like, right? That there is no due process for you, that there is probable cause to actually have law enforcement, specifically immigration, asking you for your papers. It's really hard for me to talk about this issue, again, because it's very personal. It breaks my heart to have to talk to my parents who just became citizens last year and have to tell them that they have to make a copy of their passport and their naturalization certificate and take it wherever they go. In the 25 years that we've been here, this was the first time that we had that conversation. We spent 13 years here undocumented. And even when we were undocumented, this was not something that we thought was going to be happening now. So I leave you with, answering what is the greatest threat. But with that, we have silver linings. And again, it is meetings like these that give me hope. Because when we think about what can we do, I think one of the biggest things that we could do is be informed, talk to our neighbors, get to know our neighbors as well, hear their stories. You might be very surprised to know that you have a lot of people who don't even know their immigrant story. I tell people time and time again, especially those who, believe that we need to deport them all, that we need to have show me your paper rules. I ask them, do you know your family's history? Because I can guarantee you that if your grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-great-great-great-grandparents had to immigrate to the United States with the current immigration laws that we have, they would have been denied entry. So I think that when it comes to what can we do, we can speak up, we can speak out, we can be allies. When you see something, say something. I always will be promoting the family support hotline. It actually has allowed for a lot of these raids to stop. And if they haven't stopped, it's allowed us to document the patterns of immigration. Because again, it's not happening in Chicago. It's happening, I can tell you, it's happening in my district. It's happening in Joliet, it's happening in Bolingbrook, it's happening in Romeoville. It's happening close to home. The last thing I want to leave you with, because I do want to be respectful of time, because as I was talking about the dehumanization of our neighbors, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and it really hit home from the Daily, if you guys want to listen to it. And they talked to a US citizen, a 9th grader from El Salvador, who said, I never felt this unsafe ever. So I'm changing things about myself. I don't talk Spanish out loud whenever I'm in the street. I like to go play soccer, but I no longer play soccer. I like to play with other people. But at this moment, I'm afraid. But there's one thing I'm not going to lose, and I'm not going to lose my hair. My curly hair, I don't like to cut it. I don't like to cut my hair too short. At least I have that one thing that I do not want to let go. At least that's one part of me that I could keep true to myself. I just want to be me. This is the part that hit me. I wouldn't want to be related to a mice, but I feel like mice, how they are always hiding, how they are going around silently, quickly. Yeah, my head has been on the swivel 24/7 here. This is what we're seeing. And I'm not saying this to tug at your heart, I want you to use this story to talk to the person who probably voted for Trump and say, like, is this the America that we want? The answer is no. So thank you, everybody. I really, we're so really thankful that you're here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy, and I'm with Indivisible Naperville, and I'm just going to give a brief overview of Signs of Solidarity before Illinois Workers in Action take over and talk to us about the canvas. So after No Kings in June, Indivisible and their partners had a series of calls over the summer. There were 3 of them called 1 Million Rising. And the third call was What Now? Organizing Action. And one of their projects was Signs of Solidarity. And this is a community canvas to visit local businesses and ask them to post signs that declare their support for their immigrant neighbors in opposition to ICE, as well as create a private area for employees that ICE cannot enter legally without a signed judicial warrant. Kevin Amato, Program Supervisor, and Johan Shalome, Program Coordinator for Bolingbrook, Naperville, and Aurora, are now going to cover canvassing one-on-one and know your rights.
Hi everybody, how are you all doing today? Okay, kind of? I see it, I can feel it, I can see it. We're feeling the same way, right? So, yes. Honestly, again, my name is Kevin Amato, born and raised Chicagoan, been organizing for about 8 years on similar issues for different nonprofits. And today, actually, we'll get a chance to share a little bit about this canvassing. I'm so glad you're a part of this. This Rights for All campaign, and we have everything we're going to show you, it's all in the back. So, come say hi afterwards. But, the Rights for All campaign is what we started this year with IWA, where we get to actually engage with businesses so that they know their rights and responsibilities for themselves, but also for each other. And how do you have a protection plan? How do you have an emergency business plan in case DHS or ICE does show up? Like, who's talking to clients? Who's gonna engage with them? Do you have locked doors? What is the follow-up? It is a messy thing, especially if you think about businesses, groceries, barbershops, legal clinics, schools, church. And I know there's not businesses, but we've tapped into that as well because they're by and they also participated in this as well. And so on the back side, it says that it's just para todos, so it's a Spanish version. But nonetheless, it's been, we've seen the full spectrum of individuals as we've been canvassing, and I'll share a little bit about that with you all. But usually this tends to be a 2-hour training because we're not gonna do that tonight, of course. But because the reason it's so long is because we leave space for the employees to have their own space, right? So that they know their employee rights. And then we have a separate one with the employers. Sorry, it's the other way around. So the employers know what we'll talk to the employees about, but we keep them separate so they can be more a safe space, so they can feel comfortable, talk about their concerns, how do they feel, what would they like to do, because they're the ones that are gonna handle and take care of each other. And so that's what the campaign has been really about, is providing the resources to business, like how are they being legally compliant? What does it look like to actually follow the law and not have your rights stomped over? We've seen some businesses that just, come on in, we have nothing to hide. Like, you want to look through our records, that's fine too, right? Out of fear. And fear is present in many ways. Fear is present in when we've heard people tell us, I don't want to go out anymore. And it's horrific to hear that. But it's also people that are getting aggressive with us and saying, hey, like, you know what, if they're saying that, it's hard to say this word, but if they're saying that they're illegal, then, then that's, we don't want, we're not trying to get in trouble, so that's fear as well, right? They're not even trying to figure out or brainstorm a way to have a plan and to take care of the workers, because when we take care of the workers, economically and socially things improve within that space and also in the community. And that's what the campaign is about. It's not coming in, a lot of people get scared, by the way, because they think, oh, it's a worker rights organization, they're coming over here, like we got, they get a little spooked, but really, we're just here to make sure that businesses are also being well equipped, okay? So That looks everything from the private spaces that we spoke about, right? And we have a lot of these cute ones. I know you can't see it from up here, so you can take some and look at it later. But, we're reminding people, first of all, we got to stay calm in a situation like that. It's really hard. It's easier said than done. You have a bunch of people coming in, especially 6 feet, a big group, military gear. It's really hard. As a person who's been in front of them multiple times and detained even, I don't think I even get prepared for it, to be honest. It's really hard, and it's really important to have a plan, and we emphasize that. And so we've been canvassing this summer, of course, in the Chicagoland area, South Side, Skokie, Niles, we're here, right? We're going to start it out here as well, and then we have some interest in Zion because people are not engaging with businesses, and people are door knocking, people are canvassing, a lot of digital media. But when we go to businesses, they literally say, "Oh, yeah, we have a Know Your Rights flyer, but no, we don't have a plan. I actually don't feel prepared if they were to walk in. Like, I don't know what to do." And we know what's really common that we've been hearing? Employees will tell us, "You know what? I'm not the boss here. I don't have that power or jurisdiction. I don't even think I could talk to you." And it's like, yes, you can. You could. We're not trying to, we're here for trying to see how we can help you, the workers, right? And so obviously that's been a huge challenge, but as we're gonna go around, the beauty of this thing is when people put it up, as it was mentioned, right? Okay, now we know that business didn't just take a training, right? But they're also invested in protecting their community and their workers. And that training, again, it's 2 hours, but depending on your employer and employee, we've done them virtual, in person, we've done them shorter. We'll go a little over what we cover briefly so that you know what it has. But when we engage with businesses, we just want to let them know, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? What are you concerned about? Are you concerned with ICE? Do you have a plan? By the way, we could come back and do a training. Let me tell you what this training is about, right? And then we go from there and we follow up later. We don't do the training there. There's not enough time, really. So can I show you the other one too? So, sorry. That one, that's the one. So basically, part of it is, of course, how to deal with audits or raids. The I-9 audit process is kind of complex, and it's only in English online. So we've gone through trying to get it translated as we've been promoting and educating our communities, because you all saw this already, I imagine, right? A lot of you, have you? Oh no, there's still some new people. Okay. Oh, yeah. Right, so basically, and I know it's far, so please come up there and look at it, but there's an administrative warrant, right? And that is not signed by a judge, and this is what they use to get a judicial warrant. So they fill this up with the person they're looking for, then they have, the judge sign it off, but when they arrive to a location, it's important that everything is matching, like the person they're looking for example, I only have 2 names, but if I had like 4 names, right, and they only put 2, you could say that's not me. If it's not the right address, if it's not the right date, it is definitely, we want to inform people on the difference between these 2, and to get the confidence and organize with each other so that they also know their rights. So if somebody comes to the door and says, you have to do this or it's illegal, that they feel confident and don't have to fall into that trap, right? So it's a lot of that, and I know some of this feels simple, but for a lot of employees and even employers, they don't even know we've met some employers that don't know what the I-9 audit looks like, or that they have to do I-9s for other employers. So again, we told them, hey, you could get in trouble, so we're here to help you, okay? So that just goes to show you that we're not, we're trying to really protect our businesses and communities, because business, especially local businesses, is very important for our communities, and especially in the Chicagoland area, and probably nationally. I don't have the stats, but a lot of businesses are recovering barely. And with this happening, I know we've been in communication with some of the chambers in Chicago, and they're from the north and south side, and they've shared with us that they've spoken to people who said that they're afraid they're going to lose this business this year because people are not coming out. Let alone with everything that's happening, they're seeing less people. So we're trying to, hopefully this leads to a different campaign where we could start supporting small businesses, but we always leave these things, right? The flyer, if they want to put it up, that's neat, but they need to know that they don't have to open the door. They could ask the agent to slide the judicial warrant under the door or hold it against the window, that again should have the proper information, and that you get a copy or a photo of it. So hey, I need a copy of that. let me get a photo of that. Of course, we've been seeing, they're not even going down through the I-9 audit. It's still important to prepare people with this. They're just showing up and grabbing people. And Johan will be able to share something we heard in Bolingbrook last week. But yeah, we're just trying to make sure, getting people to know that, they also have the same rights regardless of immigration status. We still hear every day people that say, well, I'm an immigrant, or no, I don't have the same rights. And it's like, yes, you do. And trying to build that confidence with them and reminding them that they do. And they have every right to also, say, I wish to remain silent. We want them to practice that. You want to think about this emergency plan like a fire drill. You have it in writing, you train, you practice it, and you do it more than once. Not just, here's a flyer, and we're talking for 5 minutes. Like, it's an intense training, right? And you want to make sure everyone's questions are answered, of course, because people have a lot of questions, because there's so many different scenarios. So getting used to that, I want to share something about how dirty this game is. I don't even say game, but how terrible it's gotten, that we were actually doing a Know Your Rights workshop in Berwyn Township with elected officials and NIJC and some other attorneys, and they brought up a case with us saying that they're working on a case right now where they have a judicial warrant that has a false signature from a judge. And so I'm not sharing that for us to do, like, there's no way we're gonna be able to do that. But right, if we see it, then that's why we need a copy, right? So that in case that does happen. And I hope to find out maybe next week or something how that case is going. But the attorney was saying that person's gonna get out because that is not valid. Right? But that person is still detained, right? So it's hard. But that's why this is very important to, really be confident, know our rights, and know what we can do in these situations, and to be calm, right? I think a lot of negative emotions come out during this, aggressiveness, sadness, and we're all for good reason that we feel that way. But we have to remember that we can't fall into those traps, and we have to be careful, organized, and calm with each other. And so we have to practice that as well. We remind people there's different calming techniques. Is that breathing? Is that going somewhere else? Is it soothing? Right? They need to talk about that and have community within themselves, because at the end of the day, they might have our numbers, they might have attorneys' numbers, but who's gonna be there when all it's happening? It's their people, it's everyone around them, right? So we also give out, of course, we give out a lot of stuff. So we give out, this is what people want it, only if they want it, because this is, those private and public spaces, right? So I wanna go into that a little bit. Basically, almost all businesses are public spaces for the most part. There is private spaces sometimes in the back, depending on the place. I mean, we've been in businesses where it's just a room like this, and there is no back. Like the back door is the alley. So it's, at that point, if they're able to, then they could find out what they can do to get creative, right? There's an acupuncture business out in the Niles region area, and they actually added another door by the door just so they could have it secured, and they were able to have those funds, right? So because of the training, she shared with us that because of the training, I had to rethink about my space and my clients, and so luckily was able to do that, but not everybody has that capacity or funds, right? So, but we talk about this when we're doing the trainings. Yeah, so she added another door, at the entrance. So you had to go through another door to get inside, so they could kind of see and have that other safeguard to see who's coming in. Yeah, sorry. I wish I had a picture to show you. But nonetheless, right, this is one of the few signs that we have. This marks not one. People are having it in front of their businesses, so if anybody does come, they're aware where they're walking into. But again, because most businesses are public spaces for the most part, I mean, they can still walk in. Now, this is where the training comes in, because just because they could walk in like any other business, you have the right to refuse service and to ask people to leave if they're causing disruption. Emotional disruption is definitely, if people see someone like that, it's okay to ask them. And a lot of business owners feel like they cannot do that. They feel scared to do that. They're not comfortable. They've never had to do that. So it's kind of it's definitely something that has been a highlight when during this training, is that we could ask federal agents to leave our store. Yes, you can, right? So unless they have a judicial warrant. If they have a judicial warrant, they're going through their protocol. then you'll have to, then you go through your protocol as well. But if they're not following protocol, and if they're just coming in and saying they're not showing you the badge or the warrants, right? Then you could deny that. You could deny them and ask them to leave. Okay. I did see a question. Did you want to ask?
Is there an expiration period for the judicial warrant?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, there should be actually, but let me get that. Let's get that answer clear right now at the end. Does it say down there? Yeah, it does say. I don't know the exact number, but it does. Yes, it does. It does have it for sure. Down there. There you go. Perfect. I can't remember from the top of my head, so I didn't want to give a wrong answer. But yes, look at that. Mm-hmm.
Apply to the FBI as well, because a lot of people, the FBI can probably think, oh yeah, I didn't know. You were talking to them, but.
Even the FBI, we talked to them too. They said, yeah, you could ask any law enforcement to lead. You could. Yeah, of course. Obviously, it doesn't say it, right? Because they're not the ones that will be expecting to come in. But nonetheless, yeah, and there are different languages too. So the thing is that it's not a bug repellent where people, oh, I can't walk in, right? We remind people of that. Like, don't, it's not like that. But the strategy is, as soon as somebody walks in and it's immigration, ICE, DHS, you start recording, right? With your phone. Any other way that you can record that whole that whole scenario, and that way, of course.
One on the date and location. So it is 30 days after signed by a judge. That's why it's really important to look at the date. You can't just show it in your face. Look at the date and see if it's past that date. Even if it has a date, you want to do the calculation and see if that's it. And in the state of Illinois, it is legal to record an interaction with the Department of Homeland Security. The law is you have to be an arm's length away. If so, they can't snag you or take your phone. So if you are an arm's length away, you are legally allowed to record interaction with a DHS officer.
Yes. So, and they might tell you otherwise, right? Like, that's illegal. You can't be doing that. And that's why we need to really have these conversations. You have a question?
Do customers have the right to engage in this process? It's a public space, right? So if I'm in a store and, someone enters with the intention of, deporting, do I can record the events.
Of course. The more, if anything, that's, being an ally is gonna help a lot, right? I mean, that's gonna put more pressure on the agents. They're gonna feel they're more likely to say, oh, there's people watching. Now I'm gonna follow protocol, they're gonna leave. And we've seen some of that too, right? Where more people are coming out, recording, and they just leave because they don't have a warrant. So they don't want to get caught doing something illegal, right? And I think JB even put it, we're just waiting for them to tip that wire to catch them to do something illegal, which they are now. But yes, you have a question?
So if ICE or one of their affiliates comes into a place of business and they have some kind of a warrant, do you ask to take a picture of the warrant? Do you ask if you can make a photocopy of the warrant? What do you do?
They're supposed to give you a copy. They should have a copy.
They should have a hard copy.
Yes, a hard copy. And if for some weird reason that they don't.
If they want to take away a customer, for example, you can still ask for a copy if you're there.
Yes, of course. And we encourage it to actually, I know we got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? It's being pushy on them to make their job hard and to show it to you. And if you can get that photo, even better.
I had an experience at Meyer Food over there on Route 59. And that's where I shop for groceries, and I knew this was coming up, and I was knee-deep in the info for it. And I thought, I'm gonna talk to the manager and see what this plays out like. So the manager for the store was and the service desk, and so I talked with her, and I told him who I was. I'm a regular customer here for years. I said, do you have a plan for the store if ICE shows up? And she looked at me. We're gonna protect our employees. I said, would you take a sign of support for your window? No, can't do any window signs. I said, are you aware of the safe space you might be able to create for your employees? She was not. But she said, I have a hotline. I have a number to call. But that's that was my only adventure so far, but it's very interesting to talk to the business owners.
I love that. Go ahead.
So when you go in,
Question.
so when you go into the building, like for the people here that are gonna take the information and ask them to put in the signs, like what is your script when you go in and talk to them? And you have a lot of really good training, so is there something that we can give them if they're interested in more training or whatnot?
Yeah, so actually I'll pass it to, I'll say one last thing and then I'll pass it to Johan to talk about more of the tips in first doing that, and then I'll be able to answer that question to wrap it all up. So I mean, basically, and there's a QR code here with all that information to have more of those resources to contact, and I think I'll answer that right now. So, but actually, do you want to just talk a little bit about tips about canvassing? And then I'll wrap us up about what we've been seeing, how they work, and I think that'll answer a lot of questions that you all might have.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about canvassing. I'm Johan, I'm a program coordinator here. So I'll hold it up here. So I'll just give you a quick little overview. How many of you have canvassed before? Okay, quite a bit of you. Okay, I have an experienced crowd here. Yeah. So I'll just give you some tips and tricks that like we've learned and that we've experienced here in the work that we've done. So a good strategy is to always like have some sort of identifying merch. We like to have our shirts, Illinois Workers in Action, those shirts, just like people know who you're associated with, and like maybe if it wasn't you canvassing or like you know someone who was canvassing, if someone tells you, oh, someone already in the green shirt came and talked to me, you know who it was and that it was you and not someone else, right? So that's a great thing to have, shirt, hat, button, anything like that. Good to have a charged phone. You never know what might happen, and it's good to just be able to communicate in case of an emergency, and so make sure to have it. We don't want in a situation where someone is stuck or having to deal with law enforcement and unaware or unsupported in those situations. So please have some sort of way to be communicated and have someone know where you're going. Don't just go and do it by yourself without letting anyone know. It's good to like be connected and know. That's why groups like this are really good, is because we can support one another when doing these efforts. So please let someone know. Have a walk list, which is something that like cutting turf, or something that we're going to do afterwards, right? Dividing the districts, dividing the different businesses and stores, right? That's always like great number one thing to have. Comfortable shoes, you know, just you don't want to be out there in flip-flops. It could be kind of annoying. Different literature, know your right-tingers, just anything that you can hand or give to or offer to businesses than just like words, right? Businesses and different people like to be able to receive something and like have some sort of information because they may not recall or remember exactly, or they might even have the time to have a full conversation with you, but then looking back, they have something. And make sure to leave some contact information as well, so that they can get back to you if they don't have the time to actually interact with you. A script and a sign-up form. The script depends on what you are doing. We tend to have scripts as well, but it also just depends on which event and what exactly we're canvassing for. And a friendly attitude. People are more receptive when you have a smile on your face, and you can go and like not be like necessarily confrontational. You want to go and be you want to go and like be like approachable and not confrontational in the sense that like they feel like apprehensive, right? You want to be able to share your information, because that's what we want to do, right? We want to share this information, and you know, so be out there. I know it's hard times, so it's not always easy to be able to do this sort of work, but it'll be good. During the actual like interaction, what are some good things to do? Emphasizing the community effort. Emphasize how things around how this is a community-based effort and that it's something that your community cares about. That makes businesses a lot more receptive, right? If businesses feel like it's important to the community, they feel like they have a stake in it as well, right? Because then their businesses are affected by it, right? And then they know, it's like, oh, even if like I am like neutral about something or like about this position, I know my community is not, and that might like I guess in a cynical view, affect my business profits, right? So it's always good to emphasize the community aspect of it and the community effort. Be visible. You don't want to hide yourself. You don't want to like seclude your face. It's just so the community member knows who's at the door, right? Because if like you're kind of hiding your face when you're at a business or at a door, it makes people less receptive to want to open the door, right? It's like, oh, why are they hiding their face? I personally don't feel like we have anything to hide when we're out there canvassing, right? Like we're there for a reason. We're there to be proud of what we're doing. Stick to the buddy system. If you are new to canvassing and haven't canvassed before, it's a good idea to like go with someone else to be supported at that time. If you're more experienced, like you may be able to canvass by yourself, but we do champion a buddy system and be supported with you because you never know what might happen, right? And if you don't know exactly like what to say, that's why we have the script. We use it as a guide. Like we can either do like a word from word, which like we don't like as well, or like some bulletins, a nice little guide to like show you like, oh, this is what I'll start off with, this is what I want to emphasize, and then we'll transition. If you don't know something, be honest with them. Tell them that like, oh, I'm not sure, I'm not required. One thing we want to emphasize is that we're not giving out legal information. We are not lawyers, right? We're giving out resources. That's something you want to emphasize very clearly. Is we are not lawyers. If I don't know something, I can ask. You can be. Oh, I can ask someone, or I can leave information with someone who might have the answer, right? Be very honest with that. Respect boundaries. If they are confrontational or saying things, be like, okay, I'm fine, I'll get out of here, I'm sorry, and then walk away, apologize, and just be like, I didn't mean to upset you, right? If no one's home or someone like can't like talk to you, leave the literature so at least like they have something to come back to. And record information. You want to jot down like some important stuff that happens, the interactions, where you were, like if something notable happens, because sometimes you'll meet a business who like is very receptive and wants that training for them and like other places as well. You want to jot that down so we know for our records, right? So we can reach more people. You want to keep track of those things. And just stay safe, right? Stay safe and just think of, I guess like at the end of the day, that common sense a lot of the times will go a long way. Just like you can kind of feel the way a situation is going. So just in my experience, that's kind of what I felt. If I feel like it's going a certain way, you want to know that like, okay, my better judgment says we should probably pull out of there or keep antagonizing this person or like making them irritable. And those are just some tips that we have, like canvassing we do.
And I think too, I know it's a lot of ideas, a lot of things. Let me share in de facto how things have turned out for us and some of our other canvassers. We've seen, like I said, the whole spectrum of people were telling us, and I think it puts it back. So basically, right? First of all, we're going in there not asking for a favor. We're not going in there asking them to join us for us. It's, hey, we're here to check in with you. How are you doing? It's just being human. And that's an art in itself, but and it gets complicated because sometimes depending on the day and the time, if it's a restaurant, I mean, they might say, we're busy, I can't even talk to you. Like, honestly, you're distracting me, I'm stressing out. So on those points then, and you can tell when someone's already checked out, we leave it there like, okay, well, hey, this is not just for your business, also put it in your pocket, take it home, maybe you want it for your family or anybody else. So it's been very disheartening. I mean, we've been told by immigrant-owned small businesses that we're causing fear, that they're actually for the administration. We've been kicked out before for just coming in to give resources. And even today, we were kicked out just because of the semantics about how to do this work. They literally our canvassers are being yelled at just because apparently if we're not trying to get people into unions, then it's a waste of time. So get out of this. But very aggressive. It's like for no reason. And it made it made a lot of people feel bad, right? So we had to check in with them. Are you okay? Like, you don't have to finish if you don't want to, right? Like, we can stop here. It's okay. It's not a problem. We've had some canvassers who are also undocumented told to their face that everyone is being picked up as illegal, so we don't really care. You need to leave our store. As the employees in the back are like they were interested. So it's really hard to grapple with that because sometimes, all of them are going to be very receptive and open to you. Some of them are going to be in the middle. I don't really know. I don't know you, or I don't know if I can talk to you, which is so odd because they're human, so they have power too, and they also can speak up and advocate for themselves and for an emergency business plan. It's crazy to hear how many employees have spoken to us and say, I'm really concerned, I would love this, but I'm not even comfortable to bring it up with my boss. I'd rather not. I think I'm gonna be let go if I even bring it up. And so at that point, I understand, I'm not gonna be pushy. You might not be the only person though. Like, you wanna talk to your colleagues and then call us back and maybe we can meet up somewhere else. So, at the end, I think it's just making the connection. I think the expectation isn't that they're all gonna jump on it. It's planting those seeds. And if people are interested in learning about that training, let's get their numbers or email, right? If they're saying, I don't have time right now, when is the next time I could come? If that's okay with you, can we come another day? And that's when we start marking who are the aggressive stores or businesses, sorry, not stores, who are the aggressive businesses and who is also want us to come back and give more information. So honestly, there's not a one shoe fits all. It's difficult to give kind of a template when all these different businesses exist with different capacities and different histories and different politics. And for all of us, I know we all even have different ways to engage. Some of us might be more aggressive, some of us might be more timid, some of us might be, so at the end of the day, let's remember let's not argue or fight about the semantics, but if we care about the same thing, the root cause for people's safety and well-being and workers, then let's come back to that. So how can we be mediators and how can we be diplomatic in this would be super helpful, because you know what? After that person yelled at our face about like the unions and everything, I told them, I agree that unions have a lot of power. We should actually have more unions. And he's like, oh, okay. And he didn't know what to say. Like, I thought I was gonna yell back at him, but he said like, well, you guys need to leave anyway. And then he chased us a block later. And he's like, hey, let me show you why I was saying what I was saying. I'm like, we're already over it, man. We left, it's okay, right? But even in Niles last week, some canvassers were chased out. And when they went to another business, apparently that owner said, I own this strip. And I called the cops, you guys need to leave, right? So it got very confrontational. So it's really tough, right? I want to prepare all of you who are going to be doing this with us to prepare yourself, because it might go great, it might be horrific, but we got each other, right? So we need to check with each other, and at the end of the day, we're doing this because we care for our community, and we want it to be a better place, and that takes us doing this work. So I think we're like way past time somehow. So I think I'm gonna pass it back. I see there's a lot of questions, or do you wanna? Okay, phenomenal.
Okay. Thank you both, Kevin and Johan. Now, before I get to how we're setting up our canvas, I want to tell you about some upcoming events this weekend. We're going to have a booth at Naper Pride Fest on Saturday, and Sunday we have a petition drive. It's going to be at the Wi-Fi park right out here with a lot of candidates. There's information up at the front. October 18th is going to be the next Snow Kings. Now, before I kind of describe how we think we're going to do this, I have two experiences from the last 2 days picking up print jobs. So one place I went to, UPS, the UPS store at Naper and 75th, and they copied some things for me. And so, there were just two people in the store, two clerks, so I asked them if they would put a sign in the window, and they said, well, we're corporate policy is very strict about that, but they made copies and said they would bring it up with the manager. And then today I was at Advanced Offset Press picking up more printing, and that's a one-man shop, and he said sure. So, and really it was just a minute each, and I didn't really make special trips. I had to go there anyway, so I asked, and it was pretty easy. So anyway, we have picked out 3 areas in Naperville. One is downtown, one is 95th and Route 59, and the other area is Naper and Ogden. And we have some lists in the back with stores that you can pick from. But if you have personal connections with, business owners in Naperville that are not on the list, feel free to go there. We have paper copies, and then there's a QR code for, a digital copy of the list. And then we have some index cards, and what we're asking everyone to do is put your name, your contact info, and the locations that you're interested in, and then turn it into somebody in a green shirt, and we'll check it off on our master list, and hopefully not get too many duplications. And you could take a picture of your card if you want. And we are asking everyone to turn in the results by the end of the month, September 30th. And we have some business cards back there with our contact info that you could take if you like. So I think that's it for me. Questions? That's up to you. That's up to you. If you feel more comfortable saying that you're part of a community project, and we're going to different businesses and asking them to show signs of support for our immigrant neighbors, you could certainly do it that way.
Like I'm with the Freedom Socialist, for example. Do I identify? I mean, that's who I am. But I support Indivisible. I support you. So what's the
Well, basically, it's up to you. Lisa?
I would just say you're a community member, you live in the area, you go to these stores, you go to the stores that pick the stores that you go to and then talk to the people there. I live in the community, I want to see some support. We're hoping to get as many businesses involved as possible so that when ICE comes knocking and they see a whole group of businesses down the row with these signs in the windows, that they know that they know people have been talking. Does that make sense? Yeah, so you don't have to say you're with anybody, you could just say, I live in Naperville, I'm a community member, I shop here, and that's what,
Or wherever your community
Yeah,
is. I know
wherever
we
it
have
is.
people here from other communities. Jerry?
Well, there's hundreds, actually, probably.
There are hundreds, probably actually thousands of people who commute every day from the train stations along the BNSF. Has any thought been given to doing something at the train stations?
Well, we have not. What do you guys think about going to the train station?
We definitely look for different areas to canvass all the time. We have a canvass going on in Lake County on Sunday. We had one in Chicago today. We canvass all the time. So we definitely look at different areas like the trains. That's a really good idea. This canvass specifically, we're targeting businesses because of this campaign that we have and like the resources that we can offer them. For a train canvas, we'd have to look at different resources that like we could offer and the ways that we could interact with them. But that's kind of like the focus of this campaign. But I think a canvas there is not a bad idea, and we just have to look at like what would be a good way to approach that.
Just wanted to add something that has been done in the Romeoville, Bolingbrook, Joliet area that I think has worked well to engage businesses. Is I know you had the little Know Your Rights card. Yeah. So I think there's a community organization that also has been talking to businesses, and part of what they've said is, sometimes if you don't want to put the poster, you can also host a pack of cards, right? So that if anybody needs Know Your Rights cards, that they know that they could go to your business to pick them up. So I think that is also a great idea. I'm assuming if somebody wants to get a pack of Know Your Rights cards, they could contact you or ICIRR.org. I think it's just a great idea also to get the businesses involved and also showing up in solidarity.
We have something back too. I think for the train though, legality, I wonder if we need to talk to like someone and right, exactly. So to check with that, but I think that'd be great. I'd also love to see if we could organize like certain days or like a weekend. I'm happy to come out, maybe some of our team, and see what we could do together so that we could be together and not just hit them one by one. So if that's something that we could do by maybe today, to think about some weekends or something like that, or weekdays even. I'm happy to do it. I think we should definitely set something up like that.
Okay, well, before we get to that part, I just want to share with you the signs that Indivisible has for the windows. This sign is meant to be placed in the store window or the business window, And then Indivisible has these signs, which are not as, I think, explicit, as direct as the ones that IWA has for the safe space. Beth?
I have a couple of questions. The employer training that you talked about, is there a cost for that?
No problem.
Great, just in the event that an employer asks. Second question, this is one thing that I wondered is that will the government be going after the employers at any time?
Yeah.
Right?
That's a great question, and that is one of the main reasons why a lot of businesses said, you know what, I'm really for it, but I don't want to put a target on my back. And you know what? No one could really answer that question. We've been asking attorneys. I mean, there's speculations. You can come up with things. I mean, but if that is a real concern, and if they feel that way, then great. But you could have it maybe in the back, like talk to the staff, still have a plan, right? But of course, that is something that's possible, right? We want to be conscious of that. Yes, please.
One thing to add to the conversation around workplace rates is workplace rates are happening in ways that, in the best way to say it is they're not necessarily very much public facing. A lot of these rates are happening on the administrative side with the I-9 audits. And usually the I-9 audits is enough of a tactic for workers to, they themselves stop showing up to work, or for employers to actually fire employees even with no match social security letters, which don't even get me started on that because the system is flawed. So I think that has been one of those things that I think we will see an increase on in seeing more I-9 audits of employers. We've seen it before. I remember when I was an organizer, I used to do trainings in nursing homes that hired a lot of workers who were born in different countries, and they had social securities. But I think like for those of us who come from different countries, I can tell you like the way that my name is written in Ecuador is my first name, my middle name, my paternal last name, my maternal last name, and when you come here, like all of that gets mixed up. So that's why, like I said, like the system is flawed because it could only take a hyphen for Social Security to say your name does not match, right? So I do see an increase in I-9 audits. I think we could expect that.
What is this I-9 audit you're talking about?
So the I-9 audit pretty much, and all of us have filled out an I-9. I think many of us probably don't even know that we filled it out. But when you apply for a job, you're told to either come in with your social security and a form of ID, which could be a passport, which could be a birth certificate, etc. That is actually, when you go to HR, if there's HR, or when you do your job application, that I-9 form is actually a form by the Department of Homeland Security. And this form was established, I believe, was it 1996 or 86? So yeah, it was in one of those. It's been around for a while, and the idea was that by doing I-9 audits, that they were going to be able to go after the bad actor employers that were hiring and exploiting people. Well, what has happened is that while employers are supposed to have this I-9 form on their file, you're giving permission for immigration or the Department of Homeland Security in this case to audit your files at any time. So this is where you have the Department of Homeland Security asking somebody who's probably never seen immigration reform, an employer, to say like, hey, I want you to give me 20 employee files, and when they say the employee files, is the I-9 forms themselves to check that you've actually complied with filling out those documents appropriately.
Yeah, I think that actually combines two of these questions here about whether or not employers will be targeted. And I just want to put out there as a messaging technique too, especially when you're talking to somebody who's not already aggressively on your side. it's something that Dee just sort of mentioned, that the I-9 program was initially instituted in order to protect people. And that there are employers out there who purposefully employ undocumented immigrants so that they can pay them less, so that they can treat them harshly, and in some cases, I think it probably borders on human trafficking, right? So there is a place where that employers should be dinged for this kind of work, right? And realistically, when you're talking to someone who isn't aggressively on your side about this topic, it's not the talking point of, well, we don't want our friends and neighbors deported isn't going to work with them, right? Because they're gonna fall back on well, they did something illegal, they're illegal, they should go. But the talking point needs to be, hey, look, we want protections for all workers. We need these workers here, but we want them legally protected as any American worker should and could be. So we need to have a pathway to citizenship. We do support making sure everyone can have a legal status in this country, so that they are protected from workplace abuses and employers who might be bad actors. So use that as a talking point. Don't just say, don't just argue whether or not someone should be deported or not, because you're not going to convince someone who believes that, quote, illegal immigrants should be deported. You're not going to convince them. But what you might be able to convince them of is the economic value of providing legal pathways to citizenship, and that needs to happen now instead of destroying our economy. I fully support going after employers who frankly abuse the system and therefore are able to abuse workers. We don't want that. And in terms of big picture, is the government gonna go after employers who protect their workers? There's not a lot of venues or methods for the federal government to really go after like individual small business owners. That would be like an overwhelming amount of work. Where it comes in is twofold. If you have larger companies or organizations that get federal funding, like my employer, or they can and have very easily said, well, the people in the Chicagoland area are really pushing back against ICE, so we are going to take federal funding from the Chicagoland area, right? So it's not attacking specific employers, but it's treating the region as a whole. That federal funding lever is a huge part of this.
And we're able to see that I-9 process, the chart, by the way, in the trainings that we've been able to extract from the government's website. So we go through that. Let's look at it, what that process looks like to ease what that looks, so that they could actually learn about it. So.
Let me ask a question. Is that E-Verify as well?
Separate.
Separate.
E-Verify is in Illinois voluntary. And different states, different rules, but yeah, they're two separate things.
All right, just wanted to check on E-Verify.
Yeah.
I just want to do a little pitch that it's voluntary because the Illinois legislature made sure that it was voluntary.
All right,
There you go,
all
there
right,
you go.
nice job. Okay, everyone, now we have the active part. We've got volunteers across all the tables in the back, and I'd like you to kind of get up, spread out around the tables. Take a look at the businesses you see that are on the sheets. We have them for the 3 biggest locations we thought in Naperville. Downtown Naperville, Naper Boulevard in Ogden, and then 95th and 59. We've got lots of development there, lots of choices. But if you have a business that you regularly frequent and you think you might have a relationship already in place, be sure to put that one down on your list. Don't forget to fill out the little cards. I think this is going to work. Because honestly, my little experience with the Meyer manager was easy. Do you have a plan if ICE shows up? And then we had this conversation. I didn't get to the training they could have had, but that's another piece I'm going to add to it. Okay, everybody, are you ready to do this question?
Could I just talk
Thank you. The three of us here are involved in an organization that has been partnering with Casa DuPage, which is an organization that is supportive of immigrants all throughout Page County. I don't know the businesses in Naperville, but we have been doing some canvassing in West Chicago, where there are so many Hispanic businesses and restaurants and grocery stores, and we walked in and talked to the managers there and asked them to put something on the window and talk to them about getting passed out cards for their employees so they know their rights. And this can happen anywhere. You just need the materials. So if you're not comfortable doing it in Naperville, there are plenty of other options. There's also a People's Patrol established through Casa DuPage, where you can volunteer to spend an hour or two a week just driving around neighborhoods around wherever you live, looking for ICE vehicles and reporting if you see a sighting or if you see something. So I'm not trying to take away anything from this wonderful effort tonight. I'm just talking to the people who maybe aren't from Naperville and wanted to know about some other options as well, because we're all on the same page.
Yeah. So you can see it can be done, and it's not difficult. I think it's going to be, well, as our presenter said, it could go sideways, and maybe they'll say, I don't want to hear anything you've got to say. On the other hand, I think most people are open to a pleasant approach. What's your plan? And if you emphasize, and I didn't with the Meyer manager, that there is training available. That's the piece I didn't put in. All right, everybody, I think, yes, question?
So, in Los Angeles, where I contacted office depots have been not office, phone depots, where a lot of immigrants gather for day work. Right. Okay, so this is a case where outside, you may have all these ICE agents here and masks, whatever. So are we encountering that in the Chicago area at all?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them are empty too. I mean, you go to like, there's an absence of local vendors even because of that fear as well too. So I mean, there's a whole long list of it, of course. But yeah, it's, if you see them when you walk into, you could check in with them as well, like wherever you see any worker, right? And unfortunately too, we've been seeing a little more rise with wage theft, because they're saying like, oh, perfect, we'll just call ICE on you, right? People being asked for their citizenship, and it's terrible, right? So yeah, any way that we could, if that's something that you have capacity for and you see them, like you said, I think, right, we share, like sometimes I'm eating at a restaurant, hey, let me tell you about this thing, right? So yes, any place that we can. And by the way, this isn't just like a hotline in case you're detained, or it's also if you see ICE, okay? So please take some. We have a good amount of stuff, and actually take as much as you can. So I see there's a lot of questions.
How do we know if it's ICE? We've been hearing reports that they don't announce and they don't show.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that we've seen in Chicago, I mean, now they're coming up, now they finally label their trucks. I don't know if you've all seen that. It looks very ugly, cheap, and printed out, but it's on the side of the truck. And, but, right, you look at it for yourself. Tell me if you disagree. But, now, but it's hard. You're right. Sometimes it just says police, and sometimes it doesn't say anything. Actually, the one that I saw in my community this Sunday in the Southwest Side in Archer Heights, he had a Donald Trump gold pin, both of them. You saw that, yeah. So I don't know, maybe that's not uniform, maybe they put that on themselves, but it's hard. That's why we're asking, who are you, what's your badge, and who are you with?
A good thing that's like, it's not bulletproof, but like a good age that you can use. Federal agents, not ICE specifically, but federal agents tend to be wearing day clothes with a police vest on top of them. So like something like the Trump merchandise or something like that, like day clothes with a police vest, that tends to be some sort of federal agent. It doesn't necessarily have to be ICE, but some sort of federal agent. Police officers tend to be uniformed. If they have a police vest, they'll have some sort of uniform underneath, right? Like CPD has their own uniforms that they use. Obviously, there's detectives and people like that like don't fall within like the lines of this general rule, but like this is a general rule to be aware of. It's like if you see someone in an actual full uniform, they're probably a police officer. If you see someone in day clothes like trying to take someone, yeah, probably a federal agent.
They want us out of here by 8:30.
Oh, time flies by quick. Okay, thank you.
What I want you to, first of all, let's give a round of applause for our presenters. All of them, fabulous. Thank you so much for coming tonight. But all of you, check out the tables on the backside and see what you're up for, okay?